But we want to say, why did God do this? Why did he save them from judgment? Why did he save them from Pharaoh's control and slavery? Well, the answer to the why is to form them as a nation unto himself. To make them, as he promised Abraham, your seed will be a great nation. The Jewish nation, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, or Israel, that reveals the one true God. So you progress here to Exodus 19. Keep it in mind, they've already been saved from wrath. They've already been delivered from judgment. And now God does something else. We're looking at verse 3 of Exodus 19. And Moses went up unto God, and the Lord called unto him out of the mountain, saying, Thus shalt thou say to the house of Jacob, and tell the children of Israel. Here is Israel, a great number, multitude of people in the wilderness, and I want you to tell them this, not everybody, not the world, but Israel. Verse 4. Ye have seen what I did unto the Egyptians, and how I bare you on eagle's wings, and brought you unto myself. God's purpose in saving them was not just to save them from their problems and Pharaoh and judgment, to bring them unto himself. Think that's his purpose in saving you? A people for his name, Acts 15:14. A people for his pleasure. Well, verse 5. Now therefore, if ye will obey my voice indeed, and keep my covenant, then ye shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all the people, for all the earth is mine. And ye shall be unto me a kingdom of priests and an holy nation. These are the words which thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel. God is offering them a national relationship as his special nation. He's going to offer it in the form of a legal covenant, not just a normal promise. If you will keep my covenant. And notice the promises here isn't heaven and hell. You'll be a peculiar treasure unto me. Verse 5. Above all people. Be his unique people. Verse 6, a kingdom of priests. They'll represent God to others. And God and others to God. And verse 6, a holy nation and holy nation. A nation set apart for God's glory, for God's use. They're a national calling, a national service. Never mind that you're saved. You're just not going to be wanderers. You can be my tool, my kingdom of priests. You can be my holy nation if you keep my covenant. If ye will, verse 5, if ye obey my voice indeed and keep my covenant. So there's an if in this one. There was not an if in the Abrahamic one in chapter 12 or chapter 15. But there is an if here. We saw there was an and, but there wasn't an if. If you will do this. So this is like a contract we're more used to. I'll pay you $5,000 if you paint my house with 2 coats. Okay, it's conditional. Well, verse 7. And Moses came and called for the elders of the people and laid before their faces all these words which the Lord commanded him. He meets with the elders, and now God would like you for a holy nation, kingdom of priests. He's going to do this to you if you'll obey his voice. Keep his covenant. Okay? So they heard the terms. And here's what they answered if somebody would read verse 8.
Then all the people answered together and said, all that the Lord has spoken, we will do.
Yeah.
So Moses brought back the words of the people to the Lord.
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry. There's a deal being negotiated here. Yeah? All he said, we will. There's no problem with those terms. Everything he says we'll do. And he brought it back to the Lord. So what the Lord does next, how did he form this covenant, this legal relationship as a legal nation, as one nation under God? Well, it was a covenant. You and I might say, well, I know my covenant is the blood of Christ. He forgives me without works. Yeah. That's not Israel. That's not the covenant he's making here. The covenant here is going to have to do with the law at Mount Sinai, as you see pictured up here. And Mount Sinai is going to go in a great smoke, and there's going to be trembling like a volcano and fire. And God's going to end up giving a whole bunch of commandments, the 10 Commandments, hundreds of civil law, how you treat your neighbor, what settles disputes, God's law. Later he'll give religious law, how to behave in the house of God. He's going to give all these rules. The rabbi team. Okay? So he starts to, they're given, and then he orally recites them to Israel, and progress to chapter 24. 24, if you would. It says, I'm in chapter 24, taking you down to verse 3. And Moses came and told the people all the words of the Lord and all the judgments, and all the people answered with one voice, all the words which the Lord has said we do. It's based on, I get the promises if I keep my part and do them. And so they heard all of them, hundreds of them. He now read them to them. But did you ever have the experience of hearing somebody and then later on they'll say, I didn't say that, and you thought they said something different? Yeah, so Moses writes it down. Look at verse 4. And Moses wrote the words of the Lord and rose up early in the morning and built an altar under the hill and the 12 pillars according to the tribes of Israel. You have it now in your Old Testament, what he wrote, called the law. Okay? Called the law. A covenant is being formed. And it's a covenant based on the law, and it's contingent on their promises to get this national blessing. We will do all that you said. Did you notice that in verse 3? Not some, all the words which the Lord has said we will do. So what Moses does, he builds an altar representing God as an altar. There's blood sacrifices. He takes that blood, he sprinkles some of it on the altar representing God. Some of it he sprinkles on the people. And then there's the book of the law that he wrote. And some is on the people, some is on the altar, and he sprinkles some, Hebrews tells us, also on the book. And it's a legal notary. It's a official signature. And it's sealed by blood, the blood of an animal here, that everything you said we will do. And they had a covenant with God, and they became the nation of God. They could truly say, one nation under God. And their blessings were contingent on their obedience. Now, when he added the land covenant, okay, you're my people, and you're going to get this land through Abraham. Would you like to be blessed when you get there? Does it matter to you? Yeah, it matters. Well, let me add some more. So go to Deuteronomy 28, please. Deuteronomy 28. Deuteronomy 28, speaking to the second generation here, and forming a covenant here with them concerning the land. And just to show you that, look at verse 1 of 29. 29:1. These are the words of the covenant which the Lord commanded Moses to make with the children of Israel in the land of Moab, besides the covenant, or beside the covenant which he made with them in Horeb. This is why we list this as a separate covenant, blessings in the land, okay? And it was contingent on their obedience to the rules. Back to 28. And look at verse 1, if somebody wouldn't mind reading, 28:1. When you say we'll obey everything, God may add whatever he wants. And if you obey, verse 2, all these blessings shall come on thee and overtake thee if thou hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God. You'll be blessed in the field, health and wealth. Your military will win victories. You, the one nation to God, will be prosperous in a physical way. If you obey all the statutes, the rules, the religious ones, the moral ones, the 10 Commandments, the civil ones, how to treat your neighbor, the 613 approximately, and so on. Remember that example I gave you with my kids? Mom and Dad will take you out for all the pizza and ice cream you can eat on Saturday if you make your bed without a wrinkle, if you do the dishes without an attitude, get straight A's. Huh. That's the kind of deal here. Yeah, there's promises, but it takes your obedience to get them. But let me add more to my little children example. Mom and Dad will take you out for all the pizza and ice cream you can eat. If you do this, if you do that, if you do this. And if you don't do it, you're going to get a whipping, what in those days you could say it, 10 with a belt or whatever, you know. You're going to get a whipping. Yeah, no problem, Mom and Dad. We'll take it. God goes on to show if you don't keep it, there's cursings. It's not only promising blessings, it's promising cursings. Look at 28:15. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God to observe all his commandments and his statutes which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. Cursed shalt thou be in the city. There's a whole list of them. If you don't, you're going to lose your health, you're going to lose your land, you're going to lose battles. Yeah. And they took it. There's blessings and cursings. In fact, if you progress to chapter 29, and if you study Israel's history, they disobeyed, and every curse he put in there has happened to Israel in the different lands of the world. And it's not because God's unfaithful, it's because God's faithful. They accepted it. He has to curse them if he's true to his covenant. I will never break my covenant with you. He has to curse them. And so, going to chapter 29, if somebody read verse 21. Well, make it verse 9, first of all. 29:9.
Keep therefore the words of this covenant, and do them, that ye may prosper in all that ye do.
Prosperity if you keep the words of this covenant. But if you don't, now somebody 29:21. The book of the law, the Old Testament, had blessings and cursings, all contingent on your performance. So you were not only promised blessings, you were promised cursings. That's why they were a judged nation. L.A. Wiesel, who died a little while ago after he went through the Holocaust and all that, said, if this is what it means to be chosen, I don't want to be chosen. You know, I understand it. But he was part of a covenant that promised it. Okay? I say that, we'll get into this later. This is not your covenant or gospel. You're connected with Abraham, and we'll see more on that later. It is a false gospel that tells believers you're saved if you continue to do this and that. If you don't continue, you're cursed and go to hell. That's the old. They're taking you backwards to somebody else's covenant. We read earlier, brothers, in Galatians 3:14, that the blessing of Abraham might come on the Gentiles through Jesus Christ. The New Testament only promises blessing to the believer. Listen to the best known verse in the Bible. For God so loved the world, John 3:16, that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life, period. There's no judgment. It's called good news for a reason. The gospel. Because what the Lord Jesus did, and you know, Galatians 3:10. Let me turn to you in my closing comments on this. Galatians 3:10, if you go there. Back into Galatians where we were earlier, where Christ has redeemed us. But go to Galatians 3 and verse 10. As Paul's arguing the true gospel, remember he connected with Abraham and called it the gospel that all the nations of the earth are blessed in Abraham. That's verse 9. Was Abraham promised any cursings? There's none. The law promises cursings, not Abraham's covenant. You look at verse 9. So then they which be of faith are blessed with faithful Abraham. Now people who curse Abraham's seed are promised cursings, but not Abraham and his seed. Okay, verse 9. So then they which be of faith are blessed with faithful Abraham, for as many as are of the works of the law are under the curse. For it is written, cursed is everyone that continueth not in all things which are written in the book of the law to do them. Here's the curse of the law. You have to continue. You can't say, I did it for 10 years, and I changed my mind. Ezekiel 18 says, all the righteousness you did will be forgotten. You'll die in your sins. That's the way the law talks. You got to continue. You got to continue. Yes, Rich?
The most somber thing
Yes.
is that most believers believe they got to keep the 10 commandments, the 613 commandments. The one commandment, we are deceived to think that we are more righteous than we are. We're sinners. We're not.
That's right. Because the next thing says you got to continue in all the things that are written in the book of the law to do. You can't just say, I'll do circumcision, I'll do the Sabbath. What about sacrificing the lamb? What about the priesthood? What about this and that? What about not mixing wool and linen? You got to do it all. They said all the words. You can't pick and choose. For the minute you break some, you're a lawbreaker. And you're under the curse of the covenant. They accepted it. It was given so we could see what sin is, by the way. So this is the curse of the law. If you don't continue in all the things that are to do them, you just can't memorize them. I got it memorized. You got to do them. You got to continue. You got to continue in all. You got to continue doing. Okay? That's not your God. Don't ever there's Christian churches all over the place that preach this gospel. It's in the Old Testament. It's not in the New Testament. You're going to be in something called the New Covenant. Look at verse 13. Christ hath redeemed us from the curse of the law. Not from sin here, from the curse of the law. The consequences of sin. He's delivered you from it, being made a curse for us. For it is written, cursed is everyone that hangeth on a tree. You're released from the curse of the law. You're redeemed from it. He became the curse for you. He took all your sin and law breaking and died and hung on that tree. Why did he do it? See the next line, 14? That the blessing of Abraham might come unto Gentiles. So he satisfies the law so he can link you with the unconditional Abrahamic covenant that is unconditional of works to get it. So I wanted to give that. How they became that nation of God is that legal covenant of law and the land covenant of blessings and cursings in the land. It was legal. It was for Israel. That will not be your New Testament, but that is given there to teach you by contrast. And that is how Israel became the nation of God. There's much more to it that will develop later, but we saw the way out. And so in Exodus, we have the way out. Now when we reassemble after supper, we'll go into the book of Leviticus, okay? But we'll stop our teaching right there on the book of Exodus.